Hello there. There were heavy explosions at an airfield in Crimea, but it's still unclear who is responsible when I'm filming this. Concern about the nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia is growing. And after explosions at a Russian Air Force base in Crimea, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky promised his compatriots that the lost peninsula would be brought home. Crimea is Ukrainian and we will never give it up, he said in Kiev late Tuesday evening. According to the first available footage, the detonations at the Saki base in western Crimea caused severe damage. The cause was still not entirely clear at the time, but the number and force of the explosions suggest a targeted attack by Ukraine. It would be the first military attack on targets in the Black Sea Peninsula, which Russia annexed in 2014. Symbolically, it would be a similarly heavy blow to the Moscow leadership as the sinking of the cruiser Moskva, the flagship of the Russian Black Sea Fleet, in mid-April. Meanwhile, in eastern Ukraine, in the Donbas, Russian troops tried to advance further. The concerns of Ukraine and the international community continued on Wednesday to the situation at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, which was occupied by Russian troops. For Ukraine, it is the 168th day of repelling the Russian invasion. Russia had stationed Sukhoi Su-24 bombers and Sukhoi Su-30 multi-role fighter aircraft at the Saki airbase north of Sevastopol. Many attacks on targets in southern Ukraine were flown from the base. The first videos from the base, which have not yet been verified when I'm filming this, showed numerous burned-out cars but also destroyed Su-24s. While the Russian Ministry of Defense spoke on Tuesday that ammunition had exploded due to negligence, the New York Times reported on a Ukrainian attack. A weapon developed by Ukraine was used, the newspaper quoted a senior Ukrainian military officer as saying. Partisans loyal to Ukraine also played a role in the attack. Zelensky's advisor Alexei Arestovich also spoke unofficially of an attack with a new Ukrainian weapon, while our partners are not yet sending us long-range missiles. The Ukraine defense industry is making progress, they say. Arestovich also mentioned the possible use of partisans. The focus of military experts is primarily on the new RIM-2 short-range ballistic missiles. They were developed in Ukraine and are said to have a range of up to 500 kilometers. With the annexation in 2014, Russia turned Crimea into one of the most dangerous places in Europe. That's what Zelensky said in his evening video address. The Black Sea region cannot be safe as long as Crimea is occupied, he said. This Russian war against Ukraine, against all of free Europe, started with Crimea and must end with Crimea, with its liberation, he said. Russia considers the peninsula as its territory and has threatened massive retaliation should Ukraine attack it. Most states recognize that Crimea remains part of Ukraine under international law. Because of alleged Ukrainian attacks on the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, Russia has requested that the issue be discussed in the United Nations Security Council today when you're seeing this. This was reported by the Russian agency TASS from New York. On Tuesday, the Russian military administration of the occupied Zaporizhia region announced that air defenses would be stationed at Europe's largest nuclear power plant. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, saw no immediate threat to nuclear safety after the bombardment of the nuclear power plant. This was announced by IAEA boss Rafael Mariano Grossi at the agency's headquarters in Vienna. Ukraine informed the IAEA that although there was damage, radiation measurements remained at normal levels. Russia promised an IAEA mission a visit to the plant. According to Ukrainian information, Russia wants to connect the occupied Ukrainian nuclear power plant Zaporizhia to the annexed peninsula of Crimea. The president of the Ukrainian nuclear power plant operator Energoatom, Petro Kotin, said on Tuesday that the Russian soldiers at the nuclear power plant would implement a plan by the Russian nuclear company Rosatom to connect the nuclear power plant to the Crimean power grid. First of all, the power lines of the nuclear power plant, which are connected to the Ukrainian energy system, must be damaged. That's what Kotin said on Ukrainian television. And he said, between August 7th and August 9th, the Russians have already damaged 3 power lines. Currently, the plant is running on a single production line, which is an extremely dangerous mode of work. The Zaporizhia nuclear power plant in the city of Enerhoda was shot at several times last weekend and some parts were damaged. However, the critical infrastructure should remain intact. Moscow and Kiev blame each other. The allegations have not yet been verified independently though. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.